Hi all and welcome to our ultimate ASKA Beginner guide. Whether you've had a chance to try ASKA or are planning to play, we wanted to share some useful guidance and tips and give you a better idea of what to expect from the first few hours in game. Now it needs to be said that the game itself provides a lot of helpful tutorials. But as a fledgling Viking who is busy building their first village, it's easy to get overwhelmed, miss or forget useful information. Hence why we thought it might be helpful to sum up some early gameplay basics and tips. Let's begin with your character. It's important to note that you need to select a character before starting or joining a new game. You can select Change Character from the main menu to select one of the two characters available, ASKA and Ragnar. You can also click Customize after clicking to start a new game or when joining a multiplayer game, before proceeding. ASKA and Ragnar both offer a handful of customization options for their appearance. Stat-wise, Ragnar has a lot more vitality and strength. He also consumes more food and water, while ASKA is the better ranged fighter, though has a low resistance to cold. Whichever character you choose, you will be able to level up their individual skills when playing. Now with your character selected, let's talk about the game modes and servers. ASKA can be played solo and co-op with up to 3 other players. There won't be any official servers at launch. Instead, the game can be hosted by any player via peer-to-peer online support. Dedicated servers are not completely off the table, but no news have been shared on this front. Furthermore, ASKA won't feature any PvP for now. In multiplayer, you can only join and play the game whenever the host starts up the server and is online. And unlike in single-player mode, you won't be able to pause the game. A quick word about saving game progress. The game has an autosave at the start of a new day. The time varies slightly depending on the progression of seasons. Since the autosave only occurs once per in-game day, it's recommended to save regularly when you remember. It's easy to lose a full day of work if the game crashes or you have had some bad luck at an inconvenient time. In multiplayer, only the host can save the game. When you start, one of the first things you learn in-game is that you can scan the vicinity of your character for resources when clicking Z. This highlights all items that can be gathered, picked up and similar. It's a function you'll be using frequently, and one tip is to rebind it to a key or mouse button that's more convenient to use, at least we did. Another tip is to use this functionality when moving around during nights. Nights can get incredibly dark in ASKA, and seeing a bunch of highlighted items in the world or even within your town can help with orientation. Speaking of nights, there is no way to sleep through or speed up gameplay during nights, so keep that in mind when you plan your activities. While scouting the map for a suitable place for your village, you will come across some blue glowing tutorial wisps. They generally give you some hints at what to do next, but can also be turned off under settings. By now you'll have started to gather basic resources. Make sure to check out our guide that shows you an overview of all items you can find early in-game and where to find them. Hunger and thirst are 2 of the first survival mechanics you'll encounter. You can gather and eat raw food, even if you don't know how to cook it yet. And water can be consumed directly when interacting with a natural water collector by pressing E. If you want to refill the water pouch you have gotten at the start, simply press R instead. This will be the same for all future water sources. One of the key things before building your village is choosing its location wisely. Make sure to scout a bit further around the area you have selected to ensure no major enemies are too close. By that, we mean you might not want to build a stone throw from a field full of draugr or skeletons or a wolf den. We made that mistake in our early playthrough and that didn't go too well. That said, what draugrs, wolves and other enemies drop will be resources you need, so having some fairly close is good, just keep the distance in mind. Another thing to consider is whether you want to build closer to the sea. which would allow you to build a fisherman hut for food or have a boat later in game. In return, a wider open space is likely easier for the placement of many buildings or farms, which will take some time to unlock, but it's good to keep in mind. For later in the game, you'd optimally also want a cave for mining not too far away, so that's another resource that will slowly become more and more important. Now, starting to build your village, the first thing you're going to build is a simple fire. This one only lasts until the fire goes out and can't be refueled. Hence why the game teaches you pretty much immediately to upgrade it to a campfire. This brings us to upgrades. Most buildings can be upgraded multiple times, which usually provides you with more functionalities. The further you upgrade a building, the larger it usually gets, but the game will show you an outline of the final required space when placing the basic version. In the case of the campfire, you can upgrade it to have a cover that protects it from rain. And finally a barbecue where you can cook basic food. Oh, by the way, you can't move buildings, at least not for now. If you want to change the placement, you need to dismantle it and build it again. You should, however, get all resources back. One of the most important buildings after the fire and shelter is the Eye of Odin. This structure lets you summon villagers by sacrificing Jotun blood, the blue shiny stones you collected by the beach, and which are also found by mining Jotun blood shards. Villagers are the lifeblood of ASKA. While you can gather, build and craft everything yourself, the majority of these tasks can be rather grindy and tedious in the long run. One could easily attribute this to bad game design, but in this case it's intentional. The whole point of playing and building your village is to slowly have your villagers take over the majority of tasks and establish an autonomous settlement. There's a long road ahead of you, with many challenges, but the further you progress, the more time you can spend on exploring and adventuring, or simply enjoying life as a chieftain. When you summon a villager, you have the option to choose one of two. Each villager has 5 perks, but only 2 will be visible. Have a good look at these perks and select the ones which are more favorable for your current tasks and the village as a whole. For example, a villager who is good at stone mining might be a good fit for your stonecutter's pit. It will take 10 minutes for a villager to arrive, and you should use this time to build another shelter. Each villager needs to be assigned to a shelter, otherwise they'll be homeless and unhappy and eventually leave. Later in the game, you'll be able to build bigger homes where you can assign multiple villagers, but for now a simple shelter will do. Villagers that arrive are by default builders that help you with building and repair. They will pick up whatever resources are available but won't go out to gather them. That's why you will always need more villagers. You can assign villagers to workstations like a woodcutter, barbecue or the gatherer's hut. Over time, you'll be able to fill many different jobs and villagers will help you with gathering resources, food, crafting items and even defending your village. Keeping your villagers fed and happy is important, so make sure to tend to their needs and even adjust their work schedules. This might be a bit advanced for now, but just so you are aware. When you click Tab, you can see an overview of all your villagers, what they are assigned to, if they have a shelter and so on. Clicking on one reveals further details for that villager, including the option to change their work schedule. For example, a villager with a perk of a night owl might ideally be assigned to work at night and allowed to sleep during the day. You can also assign villagers tasks at workstations and change the importance of them, like setting the gathering of fibers at the gatherer's hut to high if you want it prioritized. There's a lot more to learn, but at least that gives you an idea of the core principles for villager management. Now, While it would be too much to cover in this beginner guide, be warned that beyond meeting enemies in the wild, your village will also get attacked on a regular basis. You will be able to arm patrols later down the road, but initially it will mostly be down to you to fend off attacks. With that in mind, let's talk about ways to heal your character. Resting at your shelter will slowly, very slowly restore your health. You will be able to build better homes later, which help you recover more quickly. But another good alternative early on is eating onions and garlic. Onions give a slightly better healing burst, while garlic has also some curative properties. However, nothing compares to the healing hut. A little bit later down the line, you'll be able to build this specialized building where you can heal, and even better, assign a villager to heal you even faster. This brings us to the last point of this beginner guide, death. Although it's best to avoid it, we will probably all fall prey to the elements or enemies in some way or form and die. If that happens, you have two options. You can either choose to be reborn or respawn as a ghost. If you choose to be reborn, the death penalties are quite harsh. You drop all of your equipment and inventory, and what's even worse, you also lose around 30% of all your skill levels. We did say drop, so yes, if you can get back to the location where you died, you can recover your inventory and gear. Alternatively, you can choose to respawn as Ghost, which gives you the option to sacrifice a villager in order to be revived without losing any of your equipment, inventory or skill levels. Giving up a good villager might be painful as well, so you need to weigh the options. And that's all for this guide. We wish you a great start and a thriving village. Make sure to get the hang of the basics, as you will need to hone your skills for things to come.